Okay, welcome to another Vintage League here. Today we are going to be playing Plagon. Before we start, just a couple things. One, like, comment, and subscribe, please. That certainly helps the channel grow a little bit, which I think would be nice. And I've added timestamps below, so I'm still going to be doing, as I did with the last couple videos, a mix of live recorded and replay rounds. So I've labeled them as either live recorded or replay, so if you only want to watch the live ones, for instance, you can skip to those. Or if you don't have a lot of time and just want to watch the shorter replay rounds, that's fine too. You can skip to those. So just go down below into the description if you want, and then you can skip around to the different rounds, added timestamps there, and whether they're replays or live recorded. Alright, so into the deck now. So about probably a month and a half, maybe 2 months ago, CEDH YouTuber Ian the Comedian did a deck tech with a deck playing Plagon Lord of the Breeze. I thought was really cool, and they have a YouTube video on that on their channel. It's I think it's Comedian MTG. If you search for that, you'll find them. They have a good video on Plagon, and they did well with that. And there was a number of synergies there that were interesting, like Felia to blink Plagon and bring it back and get the Billy. Actually, I'll start just by reading the card and explaining it. So when Plagon, 3 mana, creature, 03, legendary creature, Starfish Wizard, when it comes into play, you draw a card for each creature you control, toughness greater than its power. And has another ability here, which is not relevant in CEDH, but is relevant here. You can pay a white or a blue to switch a target creature's toughness to deal damage equal to its toughness and its power. So you can make Plagon deal 3 damage when attacking or blocking, or any other creature. And like I was just about to say, there were some other synergies in the deck that I liked, like Felia to blink this, bring it, exile or bring it back, you get the trigger again. But what really stuck out to me was the deck was playing Dauntless Dismantler. And this is a good card in Vintage. This is really good against things like Lurrus PO, which is very strong right now, and Jewel Shops, which has been strong for a very long time, makes all of your opponent's artifacts come into play tapped. It's a 1/4, so it meets the criteria for Plagon for toughness greater than power to draw a card. And it's a 2 mana with 4 toughness, so if you use Plagon's ability here, you can switch the power and toughness, and you can have Dauntless Dismantler deal 4 damage when it's attacking or blocking, which is very cool. So I really like that synergy. I'm only playing 2 in the main deck for Dismantler, then 2 in the sideboard. I think they're really good against some decks like Jewel and Lurrus PO specifically, which are 2 of the top decks in the format. And I do like them against Mono White Initiative on the play. If you can play this turn 1 off of a Mox, and you can really slow Mono White Initiative down from developing their mana, which is nice, but they're not very good on the draw against Mono White Initiative. They're also not very good against Dredge, and they're only okay to, not that great against Lurrus control. So just 2 in the main deck here. But I think between the 75 having 4, I quite like. One thing I will mention though is I would probably play an extra Moxen or Mana Crypt, I think, in order to be able to try and get these out a bit earlier, and that's one thing I noticed in the league to think about, but we'll touch on that in a second. But the idea is if you can play it on turn 1, it's very strong, especially off of Moxen. But yeah, I really like that synergy, so that's kind of where we were building around here. So I wanted to play blue, I wanted to play white, and then as far as other cards that are good with Plagon, toughness greater than power in Vintage, Psychic Frog and Deathrite Shaman are 2 of the biggest ones. These are already really excellent Vintage creatures, and they fit the criteria. You can toughness greater than power, toughness greater than power, toughness greater than power, toughness greater than power. That all works quite nicely with Plagon. So does Barrowgoyf in black, which is quite good. And we're already not playing Lurrus because the Plagon costs 3. So leaning into the heavier mana costs here, we do get access to Barrowgoyf, which is good. Another card with toughness greater than power in these colors is Guide of Souls. So, which works with Ocelot Pride, which doesn't have the ability with Plagon, but I think it's good enough with that synergy with Guide of Souls to play it. So I think these are probably two of the strongest ways of one-drops. The other one would be going a different direction with maybe Delighted Halfling and sort of a more green-heavy version. I think that's another way of doing this. But I think Guide of Souls is definitely one of the, along with Deathrite Shaman, one of the stronger options here to try and pair with Plagon. So really, where it's a bunch of creatures that have toughness greater than power and synergize nicely with Plagon that are, most of them, already pretty good in Vintage to some of the best creatures. People want Frog Restricted. Not everyone, but quite a few people in the community want Frog Restricted. That's already a very good card, and Deathrite Shaman's Banded Legacy and very good. To round out the deck, we've got Swords to Plowshares. The biggest problem with Plagon, in my opinion, is Orcish Bowmasters. Lurrus Control is the top deck in the format right now, and it plays 4 main deck Orcish Bowmasters. I think that's the biggest strike against Plagon here. So we're playing the 4 main deck Swords to Plowshares here. I don't think I touched on this one. So this is another Aetherdrift card. I'm playing this other one up to try it. I think it's too cute. I don't think this is actually good, but it is fun. It has 4 toughness, so you can have it deal 4 damage with Plagon. It does triggers with Plagon. And it has to start your engines, which is when you deal damage to your opponent and when it comes into play. So it starts on 1, then if you can deal damage to your opponent that turn, it gets up to 2 right away. And you just have to deal damage to your opponent 2 more times, it gets to 4, and then if you would draw a card, you draw 2 instead. So that's a fun one we're trying. Touched on all of these. We got our, staples of Force of Will, Force of Negation, Time Walk, Ancestral Recall, Broken Power, and then ways of not dying horribly to very fast combo decks. Same thing with Lavinia. It doesn't trigger Plagon, but really strong hate bear in the format. Demonic Tutor is a great card. This is just a pet card. So the idea with the ninjas, there are better ninjas you can play here, but the idea is the Plagon ability, unlike most draw spells, can be reusable. So if you can blink Plagon, if you can pick it up and play it again, you get to do this ability again. So Fallen Shinobi, or other ninjas, the idea is attack with Plagon. It can swing for 3, which is enough to kill a lot of creatures in the format. So it couldn't not be blocked, and then you can pick it up if it's not blocked, or you can, pick up a different creature with Fallen Shinobi or another ninja, and then you get in there, which is quite nice. And this one's a fun one. When it deals damage to an opponent, they exile 2 cards from your library, and then you can play them for free. So, pet card of mine. Not the greatest ninja out there, but it's certainly a fun one. Mana base is pretty much just Esper. I have a Savannah in here and a Trop just as ways of using Deathrite Shaman as graveyard hate, namely against Dredge and against Lurrus decks. Yeah, but mostly just sticking with Esper. We want Deathrite Shaman for a few reasons, but one of them being that toughness greater than power, so it works nice with Plagon. We don't want to stretch our mana too far. Being 3 colors is already tough against Lurrus Control. We don't want to go further than that. Sideboard is, we're a little weak to Dredge, or very weak to Dredge main deck, so we've got Containment Priest and Leyline of the Void to try and patch that up. 3 Prismatic Endings to bring in against a couple of decks like Lurrus Control and Oath of Druids. Another Lavinia for some of the combo decks, as well as 2 more Dismantlers and the Null Rod. I talk about this a bit at the end, but I think in retrospect I did want a couple more cards in here for Lurrus Control. You really want to bring out the 4 Forces and the 2 Negations in that matchup, and we really only have 3 really good cards to bring in. So I think I would change up the sideboard slightly there, but otherwise pretty happy with it. This is my first try with Plagon. I wanted to play it for a while, but it wasn't on Magic Online. And then it was a little bit expensive for a while, so I didn't get to play it. But then they went down in price, and I picked them up. They have now actually jumped up a bit. They've done well. They won a Vintage Challenge and a Legacy Challenge. They only played, I think, 2 or 3 times in Vintage and Legacy and Challenges, but they did win twice. So it is a very powerful card. it can do some really powerful things. I think it definitely has potential, but like I said, I think it could shine more if Lurrus control with its 4 main deck orcs goes away, or becomes at least less prevalent. But yeah, nothing too crazy going on here, just a lot of good stuff that synergizes nicely with Plagon, which I think is, actually a pretty strong card. And let's get into the league, let's see how it goes. Okay, we're up against Sing Panman here, who is famous for playing Merfolk and doing quite well in vintage challenges with Merfolk. Definitely going to be a challenge. Let's see how this goes. So we start out with a pretty good opener. We're on the play here, and we have on-color Moxen, Guide of Souls for turn 1. We can follow that up with either a Plagon to draw 2, because 1-2 next turn, or we can play out the Barrowgoyf, and if we really need to, we also have the sword. So pretty happy with this hand. And against Merfolk, where they're going to be try and value creature stuff, we have the tools to compete here, I'd say. Let's see what they do. So they've got a really strong hand as well, with a lot of fast mana, so presumably some flash creatures. A few of the Merfolk have flash. So it doesn't mean they don't have any creatures, it just means here, like Tishana's Tidebinder, this creature with flash that counters our ability, and that's shut down our Guide of Souls. It no longer has abilities. And our Barrowgoyf's a 0/1 because we have nothing in the graveyard, so they get to attack through it, and we don't get energy because the Tidebinder is shutting it down. So I should have Swords it first. That was silly. I think I changed plans from Plagon to the Shaman to get the extra card next turn with Plagon. But it didn't matter because it got forced anyway. So they're going to come in here, and they've tapped and put a stun counter on our Barrowgoyf with the Flood Pits, and then they shuffled them into the library. So pretty strong from our opponent there. And Plagon gets met with force. We did a pretty good job of turning our strong starts into something a little more lackluster here. We get to a ninjutsu in our Fallen Shinobi, which is fun. Fallen Shinobi lets you exile the top 2 cards when it deals damage, and then you can play them. So we got to play their Thieving Skydiver, and we got to kick it when we played it. So we got to steal their Mox Sapphire, which was pretty fun, and then we got to play their Wasteland. So pretty solid game for Fallen Shinobi there. That was a fun one for sure. All right, let's go to game 2. We're on the draw this time. So we've got an on-color Moxen and a bunch of lands, and Merfolk's a deck that's going to play 4 Wastelands, a Strip Mine, and a few other cards like the Tidebinder there to steal Moxen. So we want, similar to Lurrus control, we want to have a pretty resilient hand with removal, and this does the trick, especially on the draw where we get to see another card. We sideboarded out some of our forces here and then brought in removal. We don't want the forces. We're trying to avoid the card disadvantage that comes with the pitch there. We're not worrying about them comboing out on us. So we can play more better cards than forces here. So this is the Flood Pits again, which shuffled in our Barrowgoyf in the last game. It stunned our guide. They played a True Name. True Name has protection from us, so at the end of our turn though, we got rid of the Flood Pits so that we can't get our stuff shuffled in, and we get our energy, which lets us to attack with flying there over the Churname. And the Ocelot Pride is a nice 1-2 punch with the Guide of Souls there. To make some little cats. They're swinging, so they've probably got a flash way of blocking here, I would imagine. And we see it now, they've got the Tidebinder to again counter the Guide of Souls ability. We're going to give that one flying. We got the City's Blessing, so we're making extra cats now. And we get a Plagon, which is pretty cool. We get to draw, or we could draw cards here, but they're going to Tidebinder, not the Plagon, but they're going to Tidebinder the other Guide of Souls. So we do get to draw our cards, and we get to bring in our whatever I ever pronounce this thing, Vnwxt, Verbose host. Now this was a bit silly. I forgot that I couldn't use either of my Guide of Souls abilities, so I thought I could give this flying, but I couldn't. Just wasn't thinking there, so randomly got my Ocelot Pride killed. Don't want to do that, but it's okay. And we won that game. They conceded before we got to play our next Plagon there. Yeah, so good win against Merfolk there. Get quite happy with that matchup. I think a lot of the different pieces of the deck worked very well. And this mid-range game here against a deck without Orcish Bowmasters, Plagon got to really shine too. Alright, on to the next match. Okay, we're on the play for this one. Not sure what we're up against though. It's Lurrus. Okay. We're definitely keeping. I think to be mana efficient, we are trying to slam that frog. But if they're on combo PO, there's definitely a world where this backfires. But we're going to try it. All right. Definitely a lot of potential scary options from our opponent over there. And we're not the best frog deck here in the mirror. We don't have Lurrus, so we don't really want to just be playing this frog game. But it's obviously on turn one on the play can spiral here, especially because we got that Wasteland. Oh, they don't have a fetch, so let's see if they crack the fetch. They're cracking the fetch, so let's see. Underground Sea. Okay. Do they have... Oh crap, they got a Lotus. Alright. Blue. Probably a turn one frog. Yep. Time walk, that's fine. And a frog. Or an orc. Probably a frog. Yep. Strong start from our opponent there. They got a swords right away for our frog. They do. No. They don't have a swords right away. They have a prismatic ending. That's fun. Can we draw a blue source here? Blue source would be great. Another frog. Just try and swords this. They do have, we're going to try and get our frog down, so we're going to take out the white source here. Alright, let's see what they got. Got a Mox Jet, another frog, Wasteland, that's a problem. And they got more. And they have a frog. Okay. Alright. Fair enough. Alright, well we got lucky too, so I'll take it. So I'm worried about getting Wastelanded again, so I am tempted just to recall now. I think I will do that. And we got rewarded. All right. Next turn we have some options here. Jumping. It's fine. Are they buying Lurrus? They are. That's good. That's good for us. Let's see if this gets any response. I think we do want to get the Barrowgoyf down. We're going to try and be mana efficient here. They could waste us or something. They can play the Lurrus and get back their Lotus, which seems like the play for them. It seemed to have drawn something more interesting. I'm just going to jump frog and see how that goes. Okay. Black, white, Lurrus. Okay. Yep. And we get the Lotus back. Yep. Going to Orc. Okay. That's not particularly helpful here. Deathrite Shaman or Psychic Frog? Can't cast. I can cast the Shaman. Okay. Interesting to see what they do here. They have things like they can swing, and if something dies, replay it. They can bring back the Lotus. They've got 4 cards in hand, which could be anything at this point. They aren't playing a land. They have been playing their lands pretty quickly, so I don't think they're lands, which is a little unfortunate. Bringing the Lotus back. Okay. That mean a Lurrus revealed because they need an extra mana. That's annoying. Maybe there was a case to... No. Lurrus. Don't think we're winning this one now. Pretty much, yeah, I mean, that's bad. That's quite bad. Wish I had my Force of Negation available here. That's rough. I don't. I want to swords both the frog and the Lurrus, which is kind of a problem. Let's see what they do. Having Nihil Spellbomb. I think we don't want to lose our whole graveyard, so we will try and counter that. That's a nice thing to loop with Lurrus. It's their last thing. Lavinia. Alright. Okay, of course. There we go. Which is that's a problem too. Well, they're really coming in, aren't they? I think we just take it. We're just gonna eat that recall. Barrowgoyf, please. Barrowgoyf, please. That's not a Barrowgoyf. Alright, so we're probably dead here, but we're just going to keep playing. Feel free to skip ahead if you're still watching me lose this game to the next one. So the orc here is a problem for us. We can't deal with the orc getting bigger. So, I think the biggest problem, if you're still watching this for some reason, with Plagon here in Vintage is Orcish Bowmaster. We've got 4 swords main deck, but if they're able to stick an orc, it's very tough. That's fine. It's very sad. Is it worth it to draw 2 cards? I don't know. Because they could ping down our Deathrite Shaman. We could get in for 3. We can hit for 2. So we could potentially, if they have nothing in their hand, which I guess is unlikely, but if they do, we could draw 2 cards, get in for 3 damage, hit them for 2, so they're at 2. Is that worth it? I don't think we're winning if we don't go for it, I guess. Let's see what they say about Plagon. We're here to play Plagon, right? We're gonna play Plagon. All right. So they draw 1 card. No, it is 2. Right. Ah. So with the with that, then I guess this was not a smart play. I guess in theory, next turn we can play the Guide of Souls. If we have another creature, then we can give Plagon 2+1/+1 counters and swing for lethal in some weird world. Obviously extremely unlikely, but it's not impossible. Alright, we're in game 2 now. This was supposed to also be recorded, but the memory on my computer died or got overloaded or something, so I stopped recording, so I have to do a replay on this one, unfortunately. Let's go to our opening hand. Alright, so our opponent only has 5 minutes and 40 seconds left, and they're playing Lurrus Control, which is a very slow deck. They used 20 minutes to try and win, they did, but they used 20 minutes to win game 1. So our goal here is, ideally we win, but we don't actually have to win, we have to not lose. That's just as good as winning here, because our opponent can't win in 5 minutes and 40 seconds, and we win. Now, one of the ways that Lurrus Control can beat you is by removing your lands and then winning with Lurrus or Orcish Bowmasters or something silly after you can't play the game. They play 4 Wastelands to strip mines and draw spells. This hand has 4 lands in it and a removal spell for a Psychic Frog, which is probably their best way of quickly winning a game. So it's a pretty defensive hand, and even though it's not very aggressive, this is, if I needed to win this game, they had a lot of time, there's actually a good chance I would mull this one. Or at least seriously consider a mull here. It's a tough one because we do have lands and spells. And again, we don't want to just lose to Wasteland, but We're not very proactive here. If this is very hard to get through, a frog blocks it. Orcish Bowmasters will, ping and kill it. But it's a very defensive hand. It's going to be hard for our opponent to win this game in 5 minutes through this hand here. So let's see what they do. But that's the core reasons there of why we kept this. And there you go, turn 1 Mox Time Walk, which is good. But they don't have a very fast start here. I was expecting a frog there, and frog didn't show up. So now I'm expecting an Orcish Bowmasters at end of my turn. We got our own Time Walk, so we get to do that now. Then we'll go to our extra turn, and then we can play our Lavinia and then work towards the Shinobi while having a Prismatic Ending open for a presumably an Psychic Frog. That's their scariest thing. We probably also do want to take them off of white mana. White mana presents swords, Prismatic Ending. There's not world here where they don't have another white source. At least not for the moment, and that lets us resolve our creatures a bit easier. And they do have an Orc, like we expected. They kept 2 mana open for the Orc. And we're just going to play our Lavinia here. And they do have the frog. They can't attack here. The Lavinia is stopping them. They're down to 4 minutes. On this next turn, I do something that I would like to take back, and I'll explain it when I get to it. But I made a silly play here that I think threw the game a bit and did force me to try and lean into winning on time here. But right now in this scenario, I do think we aren't in a bad spot. And we draw swords, which is really good right here. And what that means is that we could take out, what we should do here is take out the frog with the swords, and then also take out the Orc and then just swing. We take out the frog, I swing, and I assume they're, for some reason, I don't think that they're going to block, and then they do. That was just a poor play from me, and now we got our Fallen Shinobi countered when the our Lavinia was stopping that Force of Will, and they had 2 Force of Wills in hand. Our Lavinia was stopping. So we had that game if we would have just swords the frog and then ending the Orc there. We would have been able to get our Shinobi down easy, and they would not have been able to gush here either. So we made life really, really hard for ourselves for no reason. So now we're just playing Plagon to cantrip and try and draw into stuff. So now we're just purely playing defensively here. We've got Containment Priest. We brought them in place of some of the forces to shut down Lurrus. We can use Containment Priest to make sure they can't just keep bringing back creatures. Not the best card, but our sideboard isn't super... I would want to have a few changes to the sideboard after this, which I'll discuss to try and, make this matchup a little better, but Containment Priest does do stuff in the matchup. Stops that, the loop of bringing back creatures there. So I do attack here. At this point I'm still thinking about trying to win. But you have to realize that they could have an orc here, and if they play an orc, they ping it, they block with the token, that kills the priest. And what we really want to be doing is leaving the priest back to block orc tokens. So I think this is the last time I swing aggressively here. As you can see, they're down to 1 minute and 30 seconds on their clock. They drew 3 cards with Cruise, that's pretty strong. They don't have a lot of action though. We managed to take out a few of their creatures, which is good. Got a Guide of Souls that gets misstepped. Now we're just holding back the priest because at this point, with 1 minute left to go, we could try and swing and win, but the biggest thing that can happen to us is we get blown out by an Orcish Bowmasters, and what we really want to do is just hold it back to block. So we've switched to a defensive strategy here. Even this, playing this out of, lets it get worked. And I think in retrospect, given that we're trying to be a bit more defensive here, I should have just held it. I should have waited till they play an orc and then just play the Pride afterwards as a blocker, because Ocelot Pride has first strike. It's got lifelink and first strike there, so it can block the token and the orc profitably. But it also can get killed by the orcs. So I don't like, in retrospect, they're playing out that Ocelot Pride there. So we win. As you can see up here in the corner, our opponent has 25 minutes on their clock and they ran out. So not the cleanest win there, and we definitely threw the game by letting our Shinobi get countered, which should never have happened. That was very silly. That's where we really lost the game as far as winning it go. But we played, I think, the back end of it fair to be able to get a defensive win here. So we did win this match. Not the cleanest victory, not how you want to win a match, but it is an option. All right, next round. Okay, let's see about this one. All right, so we know our opponent's on Lurrus. So we kept a hand here with some mana, swords, and the Mox to help get this Barrowgoyf into play. All pretty reasonable. Opponent starts off with the Merchant Scroll, grabbing the Ancestral Recall, and they got the Probus and see our hand. All strong from them. We're just going to play the fetch land to try and not get wastelanded here. And they've got that recall into the Lotus, so we're definitely on the back foot here. But Barrowgoyf is sure a way back into the game if they can't get rid of it. But blocking it with an orc is certainly a way of handling it. We're going to try and fight over that. Really don't want to get to see this frog getting value, but it's going to. So now we've got a choice. We can take out the Lurrus or we can take out the Frog, and they're both very scary. We're going to go with the Lurrus here. That can give you Lurrus, and the Orcish Bowmasters can give them infinite blockers for Barrowgoyf, so we got to take that out. Deathrite Shaman's a nice one. And then we can Plagon for 3. But they got an Orcish Bowmasters. Orcish Bowmaster, real strong against Plagon. And they've got a Time Twister, so that's a combo with Orcish Bowmasters, so they get to ping us for 7 and make or ping stuff for 7 and make a huge Orc army token there. But a Barrowgoyf is not dead, so we're not quite. Oh, it is dead. Okay. So we're in trouble here for sure. We were able to take out the token though. It's really hard for us to cast this Ancestral Recall. The other bottleneck we've got is 1 white mana and 4 white spells in hand. And that's it. Alright, off to game 2 here. As far as sideboarding goes, we want to bring in the prismatic endings and take out some of our forces. We don't want to be dealing with the card disadvantage that comes with the forces against Lurrus control, which is a very efficient controlling deck. But the only combo they have is that one with the 1 Time Twister and the Orcs, and are really just trying to remove the Orcs there. Okay, so this is not the best hand in the world, but one of the ways that you can lose against Lurrus control very easily is they take their 4 Wastelands and strip mine and draw spells and just knock you out. So having the mana resiliency here is quite nice. But other than that, it is a bit shaky. Now, if we could have played that Dauntless Dismantler on turn 1, it might have been a different story. And that's an excellent draw there. We're going to get our engine started. We're on 1 now. Swinging gets us to 2. They can't work us because they have 1 land. So we're at level 2 now. We get to 4. Whenever we draw a card, we draw 2, which is very good. This does get quite strong. Another Plagon is nice. I'm just going to try and keep them off mana for now. And we're going to play Dauntless, get our engine up there to 3. instead of getting our engine up to 4 here, I decided to play Plagon. In retrospect, not entirely sure that was right, but the idea was just have 1 mana up there. They don't have an orc, but they might have a fatal push. So I want to get this down before an orc becomes a problem, before they can kill Deathrite Shaman, and it worked out. So quite fun. Would have drawn 3 cards there with the Plagon. And the next turn, if we manage to deal damage anything, even just using the ability of the Deathrite Shaman, we get to level 4 there, and we'd be drawing 2 a turn, which would be pretty cool there. All right, good win there, and now we're off to game 3. We're on the draw this time. So we kept a pretty strong hand here. Ancestral Recall, on color, Mox and Lotus, Plagons, Deathrite Shamans. So we're pretty resilient here to mana denial, and then we also just have some strong cards. So I think that was a bit of an oops there. That timing window was not ideal. I should have waited. Was not thinking. That was just a silly play, giving them a giant orc there. We do get a lot of cards out of it, and a big Barrowgoyf, so. But they presumably would have played the orc anyway, end of our turn, then we could have responded at that point with the recall. But having all this energy here means we can fly our Barrowgoyf, which is quite fun, using the Guide of Souls ability. Tutor gets countered. They're going to make a guy. They get Ancestral Recall. They're going to cast Recall. They're really digging here. If they find a Time Twister, they can maybe win this one. If they don't find specifically Time Twister, then they're certainly in trouble there. They don't, and we get it. So, cool game there. I think that was closer than it needed to be. Did a couple of did one silly play there with my timing on the recall. You got to be careful about that with Orcish Bowmasters. One of the big sub games playing against Lurrus control is when to draw cards, when to use your orcs. But we do have a lot of tools here to grind, and I think that was shown here, and it was a good game. All right, off to the next round. Okay, we next round here against Kenzaburo. And let's see what our opener looks like. So they're on Lurrus, and they typically are going to play some sort of Lurrus-y mid-range, or not Lurrus, mid-range deck. So I'm expecting more of a control version here of the Lurrus deck. See what we do. We've got turn 1 on Lavinia, so that's a strong start. We're going to go with that. Then we can decide afterwards how to play it afterwards. This means that our next spells can't get Force of Will. If they wanted to Force of Will something that had been before, and then any Moxen they draw or any more baubles are going to be shut down. Now, I played a little scared here because I was worried about Bowmasters. I think in retrospect, I may have played this game a little too scared. I think there was a case for sure that I should have been more aggressive on that swing there. And I've got an interesting card here in Baleful Strix, which has Death Touch. And this card hasn't been played for a while because it's really, really bad against Orcish Bowmaster. It kills itself with its trigger. You draw a card, you get the trigger from Bowmaster to ping it. So, not the best there. We get to do our Fallen Shinobi thing again, but we don't get a very good star here. We don't get our Baleful Strix or a Frog or something. We just got a Mox. Now afterwards, the Baleful Strix annoyingly can block the Fallen Shinobi very well. Normal build of Lurrus only runs as creatures, Lurrus in the sideboard, Frog, and Orcs, none of which are particularly good at blocking Fallen Shinobi. Frog can if you dump a bunch of cards, but usually what you want to do with Frog is to be attacking. So now I think again we have a pretty commanding presence here, but I think being too cautious was a problem here. We're not set up to win the long game against Lurrus. Lurrus pretty much has an inevitability in Vintage. So I think even if we get our opponent low here, we can do some extra damage with the Deathrite Shaman's ability to drain 2. But I think not being aggressive early really gave our opponent here a window to make a comeback. And now we're really out of gas, and they're at fairly low life total. We don't have the ability to drain them with Frog. There's no sorceries in the graveyard, so it looks like we missed our window here of where we could have pushed to try and get a win. And that seals it up there. There's a very difficult to come back from that point. We can put him to 6 here with the actually we can't. So one thing with the Frog is that it can respond to us targeting our opponent's yard by exiling 3 things. So like we're just using Dig Through Time. That works too to stop our ability. We can swing here. They do block. That's fine. The problem is we can't get through with our Shinobi. We weren't, and our opponent was getting through with their Frog, so they're winning that trade there. And that seals up that game there. They're just going to attack and then play that Lurrus and go to game 2. So as far as sideboarding goes, we again, we're taking out our forces, we're bringing in removal. We want to be playing more of an efficient game against Lurrus. We don't want some of these cards, though. Lavinia does some things against them, but it's not amazing. Like, it'll stop mid-game. It can stop drawing forces, drawing baubles. It's not amazing. Dauntless Dismantler is just quite bad. I don't think this is really where you want to be in retrospect. I think I would change the sideboard to have a couple more cards for Lurrus, but I think even just the Containment Priests are actually better. But we do have them in here, so we'll continue for now. Our opponent plays down a Psychic Frog. Strong start on turn 1. We try and get a Lavinia down, but it gets forced. They exile their dress down here to do that. They're going to get in, draw a card, and play Demonic Tutor and Recall. And that's really bad. They've played Ancestral Recall, and they've got a Psychic Frog online. It's very hard to come back from that. They've got 2 Psychic Frogs in play to R1, and they can profitably outgrow theirs in combat to win the Frog Wars. We're stuck on mana too. They've got plenty of mana, but they've kept ours off it, and if we try and use mana from our opponent's graveyard, they can just exile their library in response, which is a problem. They've got so many engines online now. The Lurrus decks really have the inevitability, and yeah, you got to respect that and try and win before they get an unimpeded engine online like that. And that'll do it. We, have some stuff on the board, but it's just not enough. We soul rend our cat, swords our frog, get in. That wraps that one up. Comes Burrow with a interesting take on the Lurrus. I'm not sure about the Baleful Strikes, because obviously they're really good against us, but against decks playing Psychic Frog, I think they're quite bad. But it's an interesting card. It does block Frog. Your opponent has Frog and no Orcish Bowmaster. It is very good. But I'm not sure if it's where I really want to be right now. But it's definitely interesting. Alright. The next one.
Okay, we are on the play here. We're on the draw here for this game. And obviously we have to mulligan this one. That's a keep. I think we're going to try and get away with not force of willing anything. Our opponents revealed Lurrus, so. We're going to try and grind a bit more here. Alright, maybe we should have kept the force. Yep, they got an Ancestral, so we're probably dead. But obviously we'll play more. Push. That means they don't have a Bowmaster, which is something. And now they know we definitely don't have a Bowmaster. That's, again, okay. Hopefully they play a creature and we fight over it. Swords? Nope. Cycling Larian. Shuffling. Black. That's annoying. And we're lagging. Probably have a Force of Will in hand, I assume. Maybe a Wasteland that they're sandbagging. We could use a blue mana source. It seems like a good draw if we can get one of those. Maybe our opponent's lagging. They're going pretty slow here. Blue mana source, play the Plagon, and then if Plagon doesn't get blocked, we could do something fun like return it for Fallen Shinobi. That's kind of a way to get back into this game. So our opponent's got, assuming they've got one more mana in hand, next turn buy Lurrus, play Bauble, and then we're in a lot of trouble. Alright, no blue source. They got another bauble. That was their draw for turn, presumably. Blue by Lurrus. They have a land? No. So they got play Lurrus next turn.
Delta. We're just going to try and cantrip this and draw a card. Then hopefully we can Fallen Shinobi next turn. Blue card, please. Blue card. Okay, good. Almost certainly they've got a counterspell them. Spell Pierce, okay. Maybe this was a dumb play then. I probably could have played around this. Probably could have played around this. So we're probably going to force the will this, unless they've got another Pierce. What did they exile? They went with the probe. Alright. So now, we can switch Plagon's. We can assign combat damage equal to its toughness. So, if they block, we can kill the Lurrus here. That lets us replay our Plagon later on. And we get 2 cards. And that's not very good. Alright. Let's see what they got. hoping to hit a Workish Bowmasters or, you know, Psychic Frog there. That would have been a lot better than Mental Misstep. But oh well, we got to do the thing. That was pretty fun. So Fallen Shinobi, if you don't know, is you got ninjutsu, does combat damage to player, actually top 2, and then you can play him. They're swinging. What else do they got? They probably have some creatures at this point. Time Walk, that's a good one. Do they just not cast a bauble? I think that was a whoopsie. Now they got a bauble. Take another 3. Not much of a choice there. They get a card. If they have another Fatal Push, well, they can't Fatal Push the Fallen Shinobi, I guess. But they could, they can block it. We're just gonna swing and see what the Shinobi hits. We do have an orc. Alright. That's annoying. We're just going to play this out. As a blocker, and we get a card. Do they have another one? Alright. So if they have 2, they can kill it then, I guess. Yeah, he's dead. Probably just garbage time now. We would need a real miracle to get out of this one. Are they going to Ancestral us? That's fun. No, that's a treasure cruise. Do they have another orcs? Yeah, another orcs. Okay. And we're dead. So we're going to go to game 2 in a second here. We're going to board out. I'll go boarding in a second. Doing this live. Alright. So, boarding plan. So, sideboard is not built perfectly for this matchup. That is for sure. I think we want something like this. This Containment Priest and the Dismantlers, neither are particularly good. We're just diversifying them. These aren't particularly good. So, let's try this. See how it goes. Alright, so this hand has some issues, but it's got a very solid 1-2 punch here we're going to try and lean on. The 1-2 punch gets mental misstepped or fatal pushed or even freaking force of will right away. We are in trouble. That's for sure. Alright.
They kept in Spell Pierce against us. That's interesting. That was good. I mean, that's very much a problem. Oh jeez. That's bad. We're in trouble. That's the downside of that hand. Just kind of loses to a Wasteland. I've got a Lurrus. Yeah, we're probably cooked here. Yeah, we're dead. Alright. Yeah, we're super dead. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Keeping a 1 on color land hand against Lurrus is definitely risky, but we had 2 1-drops and the backup there, so we would have drawn into another white source at any point here. We would have been probably okay because we'd have had the Pride in hand and the Guide of Souls, but oh well. Okay, well, this is over. We need a miracle. Okay.
Painful. Alright, next match. Alright, so here's the actual order that we played the matches in. It's a bit different just on how I decided to present the games in this league and the order, but round one was Lurrus Control, and we were able to grind through that one, but it was definitely difficult. I think Lurrus just has the inevitability, even against us with our Plagons and our ability to draw a bunch of cards with them. Then we played them in the next round afterwards, and they did solidly beat us there after we edged out the win in match one. Round three was, we got a break from Lurrus Control for a second, and that was Merfolk. I think we did shine there. I think the big difference being is they don't have Lurrus, they don't have Workish Bowmasters. I think against decks without those two cards, we are just much better positioned. And then we have two more Lurrus Control matchups here. This one we lost, and this one we did win. If you didn't watch the video, the reason this is 1-1 is because our opponent timed out in game 2, so we won this match because of that. So we finished 3-2 in this league. Even though it says 1-1 there. We did get a 3-2. But this was Lurrus Control, but with some Baleful Strix, which was really good against us. With our Barrowgoyfs and Shinobis there, weren't able to get through. That was quite powerful. And then here, with more time, we might not even have won this game. I probably wouldn't have. So I think we wanted to play against decks that Dauntless Dismantler was good against. So we wanted to play against decks like Lurrus PO and jewel shops, that kind of thing. Obviously, Lurrus control is a big part of the meta. I was not expecting to play it 4 times. It's not standard, but it is a big player, and I think even though we are trying to go after some of these with this build here, the Esper one, going after some of the artifact decks here, I think we have a bunch of tools in the main deck that I think are good against Lurrus, like this little combo here. Frog and Deathrite Shaman are still good. Swords is still good. Barrowgoyf is good. But I think we're bringing in the 3 prismatic endings. They're good. But I always wanted to side out these 4 of these 4. I didn't really want Lavinia either. And the host isn't amazing against the Lurrus control. Actually, the host is decent against the control. I take that back. That's okay. But that's 7 cards, and we have 3 to bring in. So I think in the next version of this deck, if I was going to play it again, I would want to have at 2 to 3, maybe ideally 4 more cards in the sideboard that we can bring in against Lurrus control that are really good in that matchup. I'm not sure what those are going to be off the top of my head. Barrowgoyf is good. I could see more Barrowgoyfs. I'd have to have a think. If anybody has ideas, let me know down below in the comments. But I think I wasn't quite happy with the sideboard mapping there against Lurrus control, and obviously played against it 4 times, so I really got to test that matchup. I don't think it's good. I don't think it's awful. I mean, we went 2-2 against it with a couple of asterisks there because of timing in our opponents, but we were able to play really strong defensive games there. We were able to drag out games and play them for a long time. We just weren't able to close some of those games, and they were able to turn a corner on us. I don't think that's unfixable. I think some of these 3 drops are good. I think maybe playing some more ninjas is another option. Fallen Shinobi is not the best ninja out there, just kind of my favorite. There are better ninjas you could play. I think that would definitely help things to some extent. There's one that's put cards in your hand, your opponent loses life. I think that'd be a good one. If we could put in here. I know Crazy Diamond played that in his challenge list. That one. But yeah, no. We only played against Lurrus Control and Merfolk, so that's what we got to test against. I think as far as those matches go, my conclusion is, yeah, more stuff in the sideboard that we can bring in for these, at least 3 spots that are against Lurrus Control that are better. So 3 prismatic endings and 3 of something else. I still think in theory we're set up pretty well against Lurrus, PO, and Jewel. I think game 1 against Dredge, we have some Wastelands, Strip Mines, and Deathrite Shamans. That's definitely a tough matchup, though. We do have a lot of options in the sideboard. I think that's okay. Mono White Initiative, we haven't got to test it yet, but I think we do have tools again there. So I think if we can clean up the Lurrus matchup a bit and try and help that, that could be good. The other thing is just that our deck's a bit fair. We're just going a little bit bigger than Lurrus, and I think we may have to lean into more of an unfair angle. I think there's a few options there. I don't think it would be too hard to turn this into a Tinker deck with Tinker, Bolus's Citadel, and a couple tutors. But it makes Plagon worse. For Plagon, you really want to play creatures. And the thing is, the bigger creatures can be hard to cast, and you want them to cast the creatures before Plagon. So it's a bit tricky. It's a bit tricky of a puzzle to solve here. You want a lot of creatures in the deck, and you want it to somehow have an edge against the Lurrus control decks, which is a tall ask right now. I think it lines up. Plagon lines up better against some of the non-Lurrus control decks, especially when you can play Dauntless Dismantler and just win games that way. So I think it's definitely a very powerful card. Having been the best deck in the format, playing 4 main deck Orcish Bowmaster is definitely not in its favor. I think if the Orcish Bowmaster Lurrus control deck stops being tier 1 at some point, then I think we can talk about Plagon again. Until then, I think it's a little tough, and there are ways to build the deck, I think. You can play a bit more removal here. There's options, but It is a little tough, but it's definitely a very fun card, and one I'm sure I'll revisit at some point in the future. And again, if anyone has any ideas for ways of building other Plagon decks, happy to hear them. Alright, thank you.